Oh, what is up, guys? I'm back. I'm going to be going over Noche UFC Lopez versus Silva. Let's get into it. So, this card is honestly pretty bad. It's one of the worst cards of the year so far, maybe the worst card, other than some like random fight night that they had. But, um, yeah, this is pretty bad. Like, prelims aren't good at all. For some reason, like a woman's number one contender fight is on the prelims below so many fights, but it's whatever. They have unrendered fighters in the opener, and hey man, let's get into it. I'm gonna start off with Zachary Reese and Cedric Dumas. I am going to pick Zachary Reese. I think that he's fought better levels of competition. I know he beat a few guys on this card at middleweight, and I think he has good body kicks, good distance management. I think he'll be able to edge this one out either by decision or you know, like TKO. It's not going to be something like he colds Cedric Dumas. Cedric Dumas is just so cooked. Guy is bro. I've been seeing he got arrested like 20 times or something like that. Can't stay locked in. I don't even know how he's in the UFC anymore. But regardless of that, I'm gonna pick Zachary Reese probably by TKO, something like that. On to the next one, Jesus Aguilar versus Luis Gurel. I'm going to pick Jesus Aguilar. This guy, has pretty good grappling. I think he'll be able to, mix up the striking well with it, get his takedowns, control Luis, and should be an easy, win for him. I could see by, decision, edging it out, maybe 30-27, 29-28, whatever it is. It's not going to be like a complete domination, but I think it'll be pretty easy for him. This dude has the shortest reach in the UFC, maybe in history. I don't even know. Fucking 5'2" is crazy. But Tatiana Suarez versus Amanda Lemos. This is crazy to have this low on the card. I don't know if they're gonna move it up, but it is kind of weird. I am gonna pick Tatiana Suarez. I think she didn't have a good performance against Wei Li, but that is Wei Li, and I think her wrestling is going to be able to win her this fight. And it was crazy because she was actually the favorite against Wei Li. So, I mean, really, really disappointing performance in her last one, but she should be able to, you know, chain wrestle her way through this and get her takedowns, her control time. I don't think it's going to be, where Lemos is able to get up so easily. I think she'll definitely be able to get up, but I think Suarez could easily just control her for the majority of the 3 rounds, and it should be just an easy, 29-28, 30-27, that type of win. Just nothing too significant, just straight control time. On to the next, Claudio Puelles versus Joaquim Silva. I am going to pick Claudio because Joaquim Silva really has not shown anything. I mean, both of these guys haven't had the greatest performances in the UFC. They've both kind of gotten, dominated in a lot of fights, but Claudio just shows a little bit more skill. And Silva, bro, he got beat up by Jakar Close, and you know, I just saw him getting backed up the whole time. So it's really, not a good look for him. And I think Pueblos could just pull it off, 29-28 decision. Like, I hate to pick decisions, but it's like, I don't know. I don't see a finish in this one. Like, I don't see him, imposing his will too much on him. I think it should just be like a, boring technical striking match or whatever. Could get a little crazy, but Silva's tough. I don't think he'll get finished. On to the next one. I am going to pick Drusco because Jose Daniel Medina, I've not seen anything good from this guy ever. He gets starched badly every single time. Literally terrible performances every time out. He's just a yapper in there. He just chats it up. He's tough, but I could see just, Drusco just easily outpointing him out, technicality wise. And I don't think this is going to be good for Jose Daniel Medina. I think, he's not going to be able to strike with him technically. And I don't see him getting put out in this one. I don't see it being one of those. But yeah, I'm gonna pick Drusco in this one. On to the next. This is actually a decent fight. Alexander Hernandez versus Diego Ferreira. Alexander Hernandez in the last one did knock out Chase Hooper. It was a good right hand. Hooper overextended, and Hernandez was able to come back with that and knock him out at the end of the first round. That was a shocker. Big, underdog in that one. So Diego Ferreira is, I do think he could win this one. Only thing is his age. He is getting up there. He's about 40 now, and Hernandez is 32. But the only time I could see Diego losing this is if he slowed down since his last few performances, because I've seen in the past like good knockout against Michael Johnson, and has some pop in his hands. Both of these guys have good pop in their hands. It should be actually a good banger of a fight. I'm gonna pick Diego Ferreira though. I just seen more to him. I think he moves better than Hernandez. Hernandez does have to mix it up with this one, throw the kicks, and cut off the cage well, because I think if he doesn't, Ferreira could just move around, use his boxing, find the shots he needs to win this, and on the ground I think Ferreira could do well, and I think it should be a win for Ferreira. I'm gonna say by finish. I'm gonna say second round TKO by Diego Ferreira. Should be not easy, but a good fight. Santiago Luna versus Quang Lee. I was watching this guy, Santiago Luna, and I'm actually very impressed by him. He is super aggressive in the striking, in the grappling. He has good pop in his hands, and he's super young. He's like 20, 21, and I think that he's going to knock out Quang Lee or find a rear naked choke first or second round. I'm actually pretty heavy on this dude. I'm excited to see him in this division. He's going to have a lot of time to develop and really like find his own in the division, but he should have a lot of hype around him. He's pretty exciting. Every single time I saw him, he was like suplexing people when he got to their back, and then he would be like, I've seen him knock out people. He's really good. Quang Lee, his boxing isn't great. He's kind of just, he doesn't have great footwork. He's a little bit slow. Decent pop in the hands. Seen a knockout from him, but other than that, Santiago Luna should win this one. I would say, as long as he doesn't gas out or, make a mistake on the ground that gets it reversed, I think he should easily win this. I don't know how the odds are so close. I think Luna should win this one easily. Should have a lot of hype around him. I'm excited to see him in the future. On to the next, Kelvin Gastelum versus Dustin Stolfus. I am going to pick Kelvin Gastelum. Dustin Stolfus has, he's cooked in this one. He's gotten starched so many times. He got knocked out by Abu Smagomedov. That's when you know it's bad. And Gastelum is, he's a marauder, bro. He's a marauder. I think he's going to be able to use the boxing, get in the inside quickly, and easily knock out Dustin Stolfus. I think this is a bad matchup for him. I know that last time out, Kelvin had a really hard matchup with Joe Pyfer, which is, rough. I think that was his punishment for missing weight pretty much and eating too much on fight week. But, I think it should be easy for Kelvin Gastelum here. Not a good opponent, not a good chin. That's what you really need to beat Kelvin Gastelum because of the pop in his hands. If he's not able to knock you out and you're able to, keep him at range, it could be tough for him. But I don't see this being the one. Dustin really does like to swing on the inside, and it should be rough for him. I think I'm gonna pick Gastelum easily by first round KO. So on to the next one, Rafa Garcia versus Jared Gordon. I am going to pick Jared Gordon. I think, Rafa Garcia is built like a burp. I'm going to pull up that picture. That shit is hilarious. But Jared Gordon should easily have this in the bag. I think his boxing is really good. He should be able to touch up Rafa Garcia and, make it a hard night for him. I think he could easily get the finish here. You know, second round TKO, not like starch him out badly, but you know, Gordon was touching up Patty but pretty good, and he keeps it tight with the boxing and is able to work his combinations good. If his opponent doesn't have good defense, Rafa Garcia does not have good defense. So I think Gordon by round 2 KO should be a lock for me. I'm gonna be surprised if Rafa Garcia is able to win this. I think the only path to victory for him is really just, getting to the ground and finding Jared Gordon's back. But other than that, on the stand up, it should be clean sweep for Jared Gordon. Easy win. I'm going to go round 2 KO. Easy. On to the next one. Rob Font versus David Martinez. Bro, it's actually crazy to think about how Rob Font during the pandemic was ranked number 3, which shows how weak the division was at that point. But man, I think he's cooked. I'm not gonna lie. I'm actually gonna pick David Martinez to win this one, just because Rob Font, I feel like, doesn't have the best footwork, doesn't move that well, and he's getting up there in age. He's not active, you know, and I think David Martinez is really quick. He showed a really good performance in his debut, and he was darting in and out of range, using good feints. He's a little too twitchy. I think that could be, bad for him in the sense that he could get a little gassed if it goes later in the fight. But round 1, round 2, he should win as long as Rob Font can't find a finish, which he usually never does in the third round. I'm gonna pick David Martinez. I'm not gonna lie, because Rob Font has been so lost in the past few years, like not very active, not really winning. I'm gonna pick David Martinez by round 2 KO, TKO. It should be not an easy fight for him. Rob Font is definitely a decently high level fighter, but I think David Martinez being, a little younger and, having more, speed is just going to be the underlying factor in this. I think it should be like an easy TKO finish for David Martinez. On to the main event. I am hyped about this one. This saves the card. Diego Lopez, Gene Silva. I don't know, man. This one, I'm going to pick Gene Silva. Because, I think I really was disappointed with Diego Lopez in his last performance. I thought it was not that great of a performance. People were not overhyping him, but saying, Diego will get it back. Diego, I don't think that's the case. I think he had not one of the worst title performances, but one of the most one-dimensional. He didn't bring anything to Volk other than, the boxing when Volk would try to dart in and actually throw some strikes. Diego Lopez just kind of sat in the pocket and tried to throw, and he only had one right hand that he really tried to close the distance and get on the inside that he actually dropped Volk with. But no wrestling in that fight, no jiu-jitsu in that fight really, and no kicking, to be honest, no real threat of the kicks. I wasn't impressed. It was insane to see how he ate those shots, though. He really didn't look hurt the entire fight. And yeah, he just looked a step behind. I think Volk showed another level in that fight. Even though he got hurt once, maybe twice in that fight, I thought it was just the size advantage that he had that really was showing there. And Volk being a little bit older, it obviously plays a part. But I think Gene Silva moves better than Volk, distance management wise. Doesn't set traps as well, I don't think, but he is able to, counter well. I think he counters better than Volk. If he could get Diego to throw something and come with like a right cross or whatever, I think it could work out really well for him. Some leg kicks, just frustrating Diego Lopez on the outside. I think if he's able to move and not get, caught by Lopez, I think this should be not an easy win, because I think Lopez will try to shoot in this fight. I think he'll learn from his last fight and see that he was too one-dimensional and try to shoot some takedowns. Being the bigger guy, this is what he needs to do, I think. striking with Gene Silva, it's not the worst thing ever. He could definitely, give him problems, but he definitely needs to wrestle. The size will, because Lopez is really, even if he was to fight at 155, he would be a big 155er. That's, I don't even know how he makes 145. It's pretty impressive. He's just frame wise, he's a huge dude, has some decent muscle on him. Even Silva is a pretty decently big 145er. Just Lopez is in a whole different stratosphere with that. And Silva has impressed me so much in the past. I'm actually really heavy on him. I think if him and Volk fought, that would be such a good fight. I would be so hyped for that. Like such a technical striking match. And I don't know. I think Silva could be champ. I think he is the best fighting nerd. After what we just saw with Kaiho and Rufi, it's gonna be exciting to see this weekend. And I do think that Silva will win. I think it could be like it's hard to pick finish because Lopez is so durable. Could be a decision. We haven't seen Silva in a 5-round fight, and he has good ground game. It's not like he would submit Lopez though, and I don't see Lopez winning. So I am gonna pick Gene Silva by decision. I think he'll, be able to hurt Lopez a little bit, not rock him to the point where he's almost finished, but he'll definitely get Lopez second guessing on, going to the inside and just swinging in the pocket. I don't think he's going to have the opportunity to do that. Silva does have to be careful on his retreats when he's like getting out of range and everything. But I also just want Silva to win because I know people find him annoying, but I feel like he's so much better for the sport. Imagine Volk and Gene Silva in a title matchup. We already seen Diego Lopez. Let's see Gene Silva win this one. It would be good for the division. And, I think that's actually a pretty favorable matchup for Gene Silva if he went against Volk, especially Volk being, 37, might be even older at the time if Gene Silva wins this one. And I think, yeah, Gene Silva will win this one. I think he'll show not a levels, but it'll be like Imavov versus Kaiho. He'll be a step ahead. I think, Lopez is a little too slow. He doesn't move well enough. He doesn't show enough of his game. I think Silva shows so much. He shows good distance management, good boxing, good kickboxing, even good ground game. That ninja choke that he had on Bryce Mitchell was impressive. And, yeah, I'm going to pick Gene Silva. Decision. He's going to be able to touch him up, going to be a step ahead, and should win it easily. I'm going to say easily, honestly. I think, Lopez, he needs to go back to the drawing board after this one and really try to mix his game up a little bit. I think having more of a wrestling heavy approach, trying to control people and then work his jiu-jitsu would work better for him because in the past we've seen he just kind of, relies on getting taken down almost and then working his jiu-jitsu off of people wrestling him. I think if he wrestled, really controlled people more, that's his only path to victory for me in this one. Really just wrestling and trying to find a submission. So I think he should try to do that in this fight. If he doesn't, I think Gene Silva wins. And Gene Silva will win this weekend. That's it for me, guys. I am going to see you guys after this. I'll make a recap video on this, and we'll see, man. Gene Silva will win. Peace.